Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is, of course, you probably know that it's Kevin McDonald, but I just thought I'd tell you that anyway. We've got a great guest for you today because, me being a parent and having those little people running around when I was younger, and it's really easy for parents to have their attention on those little people, and we forget sometimes about the other person who helped make those little people, and we sometimes we forget that they had an important place in us and to us, and that's why we got married and we decided to have kids and all that kind of stuff. And the gal that we have with us today, she's got a website which I'll give it to you briefly, is called embracerenewaltherapy.com. And if you go there, you find out all about her and all the work that she does. And Reesa Morala, could you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Absolutely, Reesa Morala.
Reesa Morala, I knew that, and you work to help couples that have, dare I say it, become roommates over time.
Yes,
Do am I do I am I breaking up for you?
it is a little bit.
This is disconcerting because it's not supposed to do that, and I want to make sure that we have a good clean video. And well, I'm going to introduce Rochelle because she can help me sort through this mess, I think. Rochelle, how are you?
I am good. Sorry, I am late. Thank you for having me. Hi, Risa. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. So,
And
Kevin, what are we starting out?
well, am I coming across okay and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Now you're coming through better now.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you know what it was? It was the fact that Rochelle wasn't here, and that's why I was breaking up so badly. And now that she's here, she can magically fix it all. So anyway, Risa and I were just talking about the fact that a lot of times parents, um, after they have those little people that are running around their house, tend to forget their basic philosophy of why they got married and who they loved in the first place. And what she does is she helps people understand that so that they can embrace each other, and embrace renewal therapy is what it's all about. Is that right?
That's it. I mean, I love how you incorporated the name of my business in it too. So that's fantastic.
Well, and you're surely welcome because that you can help a lot of people. And I it's been a while since I've had children that were little people and stuff. But Rochelle's got a lot of friends and stuff, even though she doesn't have any little people yet running around. But she's got a lot of friends that have those little people. Rochelle, do you find that because the demands of parenthood are so great that you have friends that forgot why they're there, and the love that they have for each other?
Yeah, a lot of times I am curious to know what you think of this, Risa, is if they're very close during the pregnancy before the whole baby thing, or, even during that time, then it tends to kind of pull them away from each other further out. Whereas if maybe they didn't have the greatest coming into like being ready for parenthood, and then realizing what they had just done and seeing it firsthand kind of almost brought them together. I think it hugely depends on the person. That's why I've taken so long to wait because I want it to be right. And I'm going to be picky because the way that you are able to be a parent and raise one of those little humans is absolutely terrifying in a way, but the biggest blessing I think that we are given. So, really, I think it's, are they looking at this as this is where our life is going to have this new start, or is this is what's going to take us down, and kind of where they're at along that journey? So, just depends, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you made a lot of great points that it really does depend on each person, the type of relationship that they have, but also the type of relationship they want to cultivate. So if they're willing to invest and they're willing to kind of make sure if it's something that they don't know, that they're investing in time to learn about it and to figure out how can we do this a little bit differently, then I think that everybody is fully capable of going into it. Okay, maybe not everybody in the sense that there's probably some people out there that it's probably better not. But I think that everybody has the capability if they want to have the capability to learn new things and to be able to go into it with that mindset that bringing in children into the mix is going to rock your world. I don't think that I've ever met a single parent who doesn't say that their life is different. And so I think it's all about, are you going into it with that knowledge of like, this is going to be rough. Let's prepare ourselves so that we know how to weather this storm? Or are we just going to expect that it's all going to magically work out without us doing any work or changing
Right.
anything about it?
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, there's a million points, a million things really going through my head, even through my family and our examples. But really, who are you willing to be? Who are you willing to become? Are you willing to change for more than just yourself? Because a lot of times it's more than just vulnerability. It has a lot to do with not putting yourself first all the time, which I know is you I guess you do kind of have to do that as a parent because you can't provide for them if you don't do that. But also in a sense about, like your wants and your time and all those kind of things, that are you willing to surrender that, and make something great of it, because you really make or break a whole experience for an entire human, all based off of the relationship you're willing to have prior to that. And if that means you're better separate and you can agree on that and still be healthy, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I think that, as you mentioned, there's this,
I
I think that's part of, yeah, go for it.
Oh, he came back. Kevin, did
oh
you
was
want to
I
say
gone?
something? You unfroze.
Was
Yeah.
I gone?
We got you back.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't, you guys are having a great conversation. Why don't you continue? I'm going to go leave the studio and then come back and maybe that'll clean me up.
Okay. Just checking the time with you, Kevin. I think it might the it's different on mine, so just knowing when to take commercials if you're gonna be that long.
Well, I hope to not be, but we shall see. I'll be right back. Stay with us, and Brachelle's going to continue the conversation. I'm glitchy. I've got to go clean up my glitch. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I'll follow that up with you, Risa, based off the question of what is one of your favorite things that you see while you're working with people to remember those things?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I really love is when there is that aha moment that you
Mm.
can absolutely invest in all relationships, a relationship with yourself, a relationship with a significant other, and a relationship with their children. And I think, going back to a little bit about what you were saying, that sometimes I think there is so much pressure and so much fear that parents have that this is another human being. And so they absolutely do sacrifice. And I think our society kind of expects a lot of sacrifice from them. And so what ends up happening, what I find more often than not, is that it does mean that they're putting their own wellness on the back burner, their own relationship wellness on the back burner. And that's kind of actually
Yeah.
what gets them into trouble because then they're doing a lot of pouring into other people's cups, primarily their children's cups. And there's that pressure, right, that they have to be in 50 different sports teams or academic resources or whatever that looks like. And so they're trying to do it all.
Right.
And then they forget about taking that time to make sure that they're also well, that they're taking care of themselves, they're taking care of their relationship with their partner. And so then as that starts to dwindle, I think that's when we see that pressure then being absorbed, that stress and distress, if you will, kind of being absorbed by the children and potentially even being taken out on the children. And I think that's where we start kind of the rolling down the hill.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I completely see that. I've experienced it myself, and it's greatly important to be able to pour into yourself still as a parent, because a lot of times the parent will get lost in the child kind of, and then you have just like this hovering parent, and when they don't have you anymore, then maybe they don't know what to do. And I definitely don't. I want to be empowering as a parent, and not necessarily rely on the fact of being in charge of their life, because there is a day that you do have to let them go. So thank you for bringing
Absolutely.
that up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I see, right? I've gotten so many empty nesters come and take a workshop or come into the therapy room, and they say like, my kid left me and then I'm left with this person that I have no idea who they are. I don't know anything about them. You know, we haven't really talked for the last 18, 19, 20
Yeah.
years.
I got a quick. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
you're good.
Oh, good. I got a question for you that strikes really close to home because
Okay.
sometimes kids will come along and then the marriage doesn't work out. And then you are a single parent for a while. And then you find somebody else that you want to get married to. And they may not have any children, but now they are the parent or the step parent of two kids that came from someplace else. And sometimes they come from multiple places,
Mhm.
multiple parents. And then disagreements form about parenting styles. Have you ever run across that? And like the stepdad says, "This is how we should raise these children," and the mom says, "No, this is how we should raise these children." Has that ever crossed your therapeutic path?
Parenting differences? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Absolutely. That happens whether it's a blended family or even just in your, traditional family, because I think we all have our own differences of opinions. We're all raised a little bit differently, and so we're coming into it with a different lens. Um, and yes, absolutely. When we're talking about blended families, that's probably a big, big one that I come across quite a bit, especially when you've got someone who's being introduced into this system and maybe this particular family system has been doing things this particular way for several years, and so now you're introducing a whole new person, and it probably does feel incredibly jarring to kind of have someone try to start from scratch into this already established kind of family system.
Kevin, I'm just gonna say you're not saying anything.
Especially when,
Yeah,
well,
no,
no,
I'm thinking too that
I
how
was
much you have to have that communication.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh, Go
I
for
think
it, Kevin.
this glitching is driving me insane. Kevin, you go.
am I glitching again?
No, I think you're good now.
Oh, okay. Well, and the reason that that comes to mind is I have a close relative that's had is in that exact situation, and he grew up in my household,
Mm,
which in my household, lying was a big deal
mm.
because it sets you up for your entire life of how you're going to behave. Well, the other partner, lying's not such a big deal. And so they're not exactly so there's a big disagreement going on about um, the 5-year-old, and who is a perfect time to teach that lying is not such a good idea. But oh no, he's just 5 is the other. So then it's a argument between the two big people, and the two little people are sitting around going, what the hell are they arguing about? So so what would you have as some advice to get the big people in the house to recognize each other and to not um treat each other poorly and stuff like that? And wait a minute, you know what? We're going to need to take a break. And when we come back, you're going to have an answer to that question. Um, is that a good question, Rochelle?
Yes, very good.
All right. We'll be right back. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. Welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle. She's right over there, and I'm hopeful that our glitchy problems have gone away. I took some medication, so I'm hopeful that that's all gone now.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, indeed. So help me with this. When you have got the big people in the house that have got a fundamental disagreement as far as, and the stepfather had nothing to do with the creation of the little people, how does that all work out?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, one of the things that I would absolutely recommend that when there are those differences of opinions, that we have those differences of opinions off camera, if you will, behind closed doors, not in front of the children, because it can be really confusing. And so let's have a game plan. If you're finding that there's a difference, let's push pause. If it's something that's absolutely immediate, maybe we call a kind of timeout. Let's give the kids something else to do. We kind of have a sidebar. Um, and make sure that we're coming to the kids as a uniformed kind of wall, if you will, of hey, this is what we're going to do, because I think that's always most helpful when kids are seeing that united front. It helps them know that everybody's on the same page. We're not, able to go over here to one parent and then say something different to the other. That's just breeding. Especially you're talking about lying. That's just a great way to really continue to breed something like that.
Oh, that never happens. The kids don't play parents against each other, do they?
No, of course not.
Some kids have it down to an art form.
They do. And they learn really, really fast. And so that's one of the reasons, again, if we're having some of these conversations in front of them, they're going to pick out who's the weak spot there. And they're going to likely try to take advantage of that because that's their job right now. They're pushing boundaries, they're figuring out their place in the world. And so some of that is figuring out, okay, if I do this, if I push this button, what's going to happen? How are they going to react? That's what they're going to do. That's kind of their job.
and that makes it really, really difficult if you've been arguing with your significant other all day about how to raise children. When it comes time for, shall we say, cuddle time later at night, you may still be so mad you don't want to have that cuddle time.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I like to phrase it to any couples that I'm working with is imagine it like a love bank, just like a regular bank account. If we're not putting in those positive deposits, every time we have a difference of opinion, a complaint, or an argument, we're making a withdrawal. If we're continuing to make those withdrawals and there's not a whole lot of deposits coming in, you're going to go into an overdraft state really, really fast.
Overdraft. I've never had one of those. Michelle, have you?
Oh yes, many plenty of times. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Perfect or something. Not me. You know what's funny is I actually used to one of the ways I would get my dad to pay attention or listen to something that I was trying to say at times is I would threaten him with my mom. I'm gonna call mommy, I'm gonna tell her. He was like, "Oh no, 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 no," you know. But yes, they do. They definitely learn their place, and it's so important that they do because when
Mhm.
they become out of place and they stay in that throughout their life, it's really hard to kind of figure out where your place even is. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I think one of the things that sometimes as adults we forget about because it's likely happened to us when we were kids is that when you're a kid, you have so much creativity, you have so much energy, you have so much imagination. And gosh, when we're able to actually harness that, think of the things that they can do as adults, that they feel ambitious, they feel confident, they feel like they can conquer the world and change things. And then as we're kind of going, oh no, that's, you're coloring outside of the lines and that doesn't fit with me because I was told I couldn't color outside of the lines, so you can't either. We
yeah.
continue to just replicate that as we go on, and it does when we allow them to push some of those boundaries and to learn it within, you know, reasonable asks and within safety guidelines, that it actually allows them to really just capitalize and become just such creative adults.
Right. And it comes back on the adults because you have to be that example for them. And a lot of times I think that's kind of lost is you're being told what to do by somebody who doesn't follow that. And so it's like, well, what does that matter? But also to keep that in ourselves because we don't we don't want to shrink them. And I can imagine a lot of times too, people probably work with you and you find that the world that they're growing up in and being so different from them is hard for them to try to kind of adjust on ways of um, just kind of parenting in general and how it was so different from when they were kids and trying to understand their own child and what's going on in this world as their own self.
Absolutely.
And by the way, we're talking with Reesa, who is giving me a therapy session right here. Because I'm afraid I've got people in my life who need therapy. Thank you very much. And I got another one for you. Can I do this one real quick?
Yes.
Okay. These two boys that grew up in the same household, one was 3 years older than the other. And the younger one was rambunctious and used to try and get the older one in trouble all the time and stuff. Well, they grew up and now they don't really speak very much, and they're not buddies because of their perceived past. And I think in many ways this is karma because he now is a stepfather to a 5-year-old child who is the spitting image of his younger brother when he was 5.
Mm.
And so, so therefore, he equates everything that this kid does with what his younger brother did and stuff. Would you recommend if he were to come to you and say, I need help with this because this kid drives me crazy? How would you help him to deal with that?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple pieces there. First of all, I would probably say that's completely normal. In fact, one of the things I say all the time is for many parents, while you're parenting your kids and you're figuring out your own way, you're actually also having to reparent yourself in a lot of different areas. And so, if it is something that you're finding is triggering you, there's likely a really good reason for that, that your body is kind of saying, oh, this was an area that maybe I felt wasn't fair or that I've experienced. And so, it's for good reason that you're having those experiences, those emotions come up. And so I think it's really, first of all, like I said, to just normalize there's good reasons. And that makes a ton of sense why that's happening. And let's explore that. Let's figure out, what is it triggering within you? Is it triggering maybe the little you inside that didn't have an opportunity or felt like you were getting in trouble unfairly? And so that felt awful. And so you're seeing that this kid is maybe kind of, really brewing some of that and that unfairness. And so that's what's really speaking in those moments. And how can we help the little you inside feel seen, feel heard? That, yeah, that makes a ton of sense why that wouldn't feel great. Like, if it felt unfair, that sucks, right? We don't want that. And so also being able to kind of let the little one inside of you know that it's okay to have space and time to be seen. And does it mean that it's this child's now fault? No, maybe not. Maybe that's a little bit more about your own bags that we need to figure out and sort out. And then at the same time, if you're the stepdad coming in, gosh, you're probably at a strong disadvantage with this kid as well, because there hasn't been a whole lot of bonding time as with their biological parent. And so that's one of the reasons when I'm talking to blended families, I usually recommend the bio parent is going to be the primary disciplinarian, so that the new parent coming in can start building a friendship actually, and really establishing a relationship with the kids before we put on the disciplinarian hat. Because if you're coming in guns a-blazing, that kid's going to look at you and go, yeah, right, okay.
Well, and that's the advice I gave him, because his significant other said, "Well, if you want to discipline them, then it's on you. You're going to have to do that." And I said, "Don't you dare do that, because
Yeah,
then they're just going to go back to the biological one and say he's being a-hole and stuff, and you're not going to get anything accomplished." So
absolutely.
it needs
And
to be
that's
a
where
real
that,
subtle thing.
yeah. And you can still be a part of it. That's the conferring behind the closed doors. Like, let's create a game plan. But the one actually initiating and kind of being the front man, if you will, is going to be that bio parent, so that the other person can actually have and cultivate a relationship with the kids that isn't leading with oh, they're just the rule person. And so of course you don't, I mean, I don't think I've ever met anybody who wants to hang out with the rule monitor. So yeah, they're not going to want to be around you.
Well, that's what I gave him the advice that I've given Rochelle on a number of occasions, and I'm going to let her say what I said to him, which was the gospel according to Paul McCartney, which is,
Let it be. Really just surrender it. Because I loved how you mentioned too going back in yourself and fixing that inside, because when you're able to do that, then he'll be able to do that also and see where that kid is coming from, maybe what he's going through, because he would have dived deeper in himself to have recognized that, and now can
Hmm.
help him so that throughout his life, it's not just like this chain reaction that that continues through people, because I think I see that a lot, especially with like people in my case who I don't have my own kids, but I am a parent so called to many of them. And now they're kind of getting older, and I'm reflecting on myself, and I'm like, it's a little more intense when they get older, and especially being so close to my age, because trying to put like feed that example, but also learning still can be quite
Hmm.
difficult.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And who better to actually be able to provide them with those little children with the things that they need that could actually be more helpful than somebody who's experienced the other side of getting the not helpful stuff. You're actually the
Yeah.
perfect person if we can go inside and figure out what was happening, what need did we have that didn't get met when we were a child, and what that might look like if that need was met. You're
Yeah,
actually the best expert to be able to now offer them that to the little child in front of you.
exactly.
now, do you do therapy with like mothers and sons, or fathers and daughters, and stuff like that?
I have, yes, absolutely, and that is something I take on. In fact, I have a mother-daughter workshop coming up for Mother's Day.
Mm.
So if anybody's, wanting to build some of that relationship, that's an offering that I will do every once in a while as well. But absolutely, I think that if both parties are willing to be in the room, it can be incredibly healing.
So what do you do? Well, we need to take a break for our halftime show, and but so we'll come right back because I got to ask you, what do you do when you have a conversation with one of your offspring and their recollection of their childhood is fundamentally different than your recollection of their childhood and your relationship with them? I would love to know because and like I said, I'm in therapy. We'll be right back after Reesa is with us and Brishelle is with us, and we'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. Brishelle, who's our guest today? I've forgotten. It's been so long.
We have Reesa Morala today, who focuses on helping everybody build healthy relationships no matter the dynamic.
Well, that's awesome because what do you do? I mean, my recollection of, I thought it was sunshine and rainbows, that I was the perfect dad and stuff. And then I have a conversation and I find out apparently I wasn't so perfect after all. And he has recollections that I don't remember, and the way things turned out. How can do I have to take a video camera and go back into the past to take videos of all of that so that I can say, see, I told you? How do you fix that?
Well, I think as far as the video camera, the question I would have is, what's the goal? Is it to be right, or is it to build a relationship?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's why you're the therapist, damn it, is you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You know what? That happens all the time. Even in my own personal life, I can attest to that being the case. And I think, again, that's the question: is what's the goal here? Is that more important to you to be right and to say, ha, there in your face, that didn't happen? Or is it to build a relationship and to sit down and say, okay, I want to hear and I want to see what it was like in your shoes. Whether I agree with it, whether it's right or wrong, that's not what we're about here. But I want to just sit in a place that I can offer you some empathy, that you feel seen, that you feel heard. And that takes a whole lot, especially as a parent coming from a child, because again, there's a lot of pressure to get it right and to not mess this kid up. And so it can feel incredibly personal. It can feel very attacking sometimes. And so it's ripe ground for us to kind of go into defensive mode, to go like, no, I didn't mess up. Like, I tried really, really hard to make sure that you had an amazing childhood. And so again, it's not coming from that place, but rather just give them some space and some time. And sometimes all they need is go, man, if that was what you were experiencing, if I was in your shoes and I was experiencing something that felt so unfair, or that I felt really ignored or lonely in that moment, Oh gosh, that would really stink. That makes a ton of sense why you would feel sadness there. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I didn't say they were right. I didn't say they were wrong, but I just made some space for them.
Yeah, thank you so much for lying through your teeth to me right there. I just want to, I just, so,
Kevin, no.
well, and then you see, and then in my case, the other part was, see, this, Rochelle, this is a therapy session. What do you think?
I mean, you're the one who said it, and I feel like you're totally getting it. The universe is listening, but that's why I'm glad we have her here because I'm also learning.
Well, and the other thing is that, you know, in a lot of cases, like I keep saying on the show, I was married for 24 years. It was the best 6 months of my life. And when we divorced, my kids were, one was 18 and one was 15. And so then there's the issue of the parents break up, why the parents broke up, and what the individual parents are now saying about the other person to their children. And some are truthful and some are not so truthful. And as a dad, what I tried to do is to get them is to give them the clearest answer I could of what my understanding of what happened was, even though I didn't have the complete picture because we weren't talking anymore and stuff. But and then they had questions. And some of them I could answer, some of them I couldn't. But is that was that the appropriate way to handle it, or should I have done what she did, which is said he was a dirty, rotten scoundrel?
Well, I always opt for not calling anybody names.
Like,
Just my own
dirty, rotten
personal
scoundrel isn't that
philosophy.
bad, is it? You know.
But your name is Kevin, so anything outside of that is calling you a name.
Yeah, but you know, every time she said that name, a lot of spit would come out of her mouth because she was angry and stuff. It's like, and it was like the hard Kevin. And anyway, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think a lot of times when we go into that place of defensiveness, it's because there's something's being triggered within us, that there's good reasons based off of things that we've experienced in our lives. Does it make it right for us to call people names or to treat them poorly, or to bad mouth that parent in front of the children? No, it doesn't. That seems like we need to take a minute and we need to figure out what's going on for us. What's it triggering in this moment? What are the emotions coming up for ourselves, and figure out ways to work through them. Because it isn't fair to kind of take them out on those other people. And again, it goes back to the question, what is your goal here? Is your goal to be right, to kind of make sure that everyone in the world knows that you're right, you're a perfect parent, you didn't do anything wrong? Or is the goal to build and to invest in the relationships that are before you? And if the goal is to invest in the relationships, calling them names or bad mouthing them is, at least in my opinion, a really roundabout way to invest in a relationship.
So I have to ask you this one, because this also happened, which was my kid came to me, the young one, and said, "So, why did you get a divorce? I've heard through the grapevine that mom was sleeping around." And I said, "Well, I don't know how much sleeping was involved, but yeah." So should I have kept my mouth closed and said, "I don't have any idea what you're talking about, and your mom's a saint. She just isn't a saint here anymore," or should I tell them the truth?
I think, in my opinion, so again, that's going back to the lying. Kids know. They likely have an idea of what's happening. They're just looking to get some confirmation, or to maybe figure out the disbelief in their own brain. So do we actually have to disclose, oh yeah, like you said, I don't know if much sleeping was happening. I don't know, are there other ways that we could say, hey, there were definitely a lot of things at play. If you're concerned, if the question was about the sleeping around, it sounds like that might be a great question for her, because that's her actions, her behavior, and that's a conversation between you and mom. As far as for me, we can answer for ourselves. Maybe for me, there was some issues or some concerns about trust that was breached that we just had a really hard time rebuilding. And then we
Well,
can leave it at that.
in this case, and that's great advice, by the way. In this case, though, he was hearing this from a third source, and he did go back to mom and say, "Mom, was this going on?" And of course, she denied it all.
Of course.
So, uh,
But again,
uh,
kids they are much more intuitive than we give them credit for, I think. And so the likelihood that the kid knows that, okay, something doesn't quite seem right, maybe they don't have the exact answers, but is that necessary for them to know that, hey, this person that's talking to me isn't quite giving me the truth? I imagine that there's a gut feeling there that if they're really to get honest with themselves, that they're feeling like something's off. And then that, again, that's the decisions and the choices that we're making in the relationship that we're cultivating. Is it one that's built on lies, or is it one that we're being truthful and we're being transparent with them?
I tried to be as transparent and truthful as I could without smiling when I said, I'm not sure how much sleeping was involved. But Rochelle, you're being quiet here, but during my therapy session, would you like to contribute?
Yes, of course. I'm just thinking about how much trust really goes into that and how important that is, especially as a parent aspect. If your kid doesn't trust you, everything about them and their life is going to be turned away from you or shown up maybe a little differently. And I see that's where a lot of parents are like, me and my kids aren't really in touch and I don't know where they're at. I don't know how they're feeling. I don't know what's going on. And it kind of comes back to, okay, have you grounded yourself to be the parent and that they need to be? Have you been an open space that is safe, that is honorable, that is trusting? Because that's where those kids learn those little white lies is off of seeing us do that, and their intuition is incredibly strong. I mean, um, it's almost like there's been times I've been in front of a 3-year-old and I want a piece of candy. I want to have one. Yes, you do. Well, then go get one. Like, why is this so hard? Like, they've already got it figured out. Like, you know how to get the candy. I want it. And that's where they'll also push boundaries and spaces with other people and how we talked about, just everything you do causes a chain reaction, but also to be in front of your child as the vulnerable, to apologize to them, to be in that space. It's like, I'm sorry for doing that. And um, also showing them how we learn. Because a lot of times, like you said, it's kind of putting up that wall as, oh, well, how are other people going to see me? And how's my kid going to talk about me? And a lot of times when the kid is in tune and knows that it's not wholly the healthy truth that could be provided, that's when you'll actually worry about them going and saying horrible things. It's not when you take them in and honor both of you and the relationship, how it's been and how it can be better.
I got a question for you. And that is, how many parents do you run across that are like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way?
I'm still waiting.
Well, if they come to you, they realize that there's a problem. But there are. I'll give you an example. My brother-in-law, when he was young, was into cocaine, and so he went to get cleaned up. And the therapist said, I would really like to see your mom and dad and to have the three of you and we can talk about your upbringing. Because in their session, he came up with a bunch of stuff that he thought was inappropriate or that didn't happen well for him, which led him down that road. And so the therapist said, I'd love to meet them. I think it would be great. And the mom said, no, because I haven't done anything wrong and I'm practically perfect in every way. So why should I go talk to a therapist who's going to blame it all on me? That never happens, does it?
No, not at all. No, in fact, I worked in the hospital for several years and I never had parents drop off their kid and say, "My kid's the problem, fix my kids. Bye." Never.
But
Well, and it
you do
shows them
now.
to be, yeah, it shows them to be so confident and vulnerable within themselves because then it puts that, well, I have to be perfect. and kind of putting up that front rather than just like, this is who I am. I can honor that. That's when you find a lot of times, I think, where kids will run away from themselves. And then you kind of see the parent running off scattered all around.
Well, and
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
the kids know perfectly well that you ain't perfect in every way, and they can cite chapter and verse when you screwed up and yelled when you shouldn't have, or call, whatever it is, and they kids are smart and they have a memory. Damn it,
Mhm.
because they can remember all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. My children these days, as they say, they've got receipts, right?
And they're gonna pull them out at the perfectly inopportune time when you're in front of family and friends and say, "Remember the time when you?" That's what they do. That's
Oh,
what they do.
absolutely. And I
Hey,
just want to clarify though, even as a therapist, I myself am a parent and I am not practically perfect in every way.
oh,
And I've
stop.
been doing this and studying this for years.
Well, you're more practically perfect than I am. I can tell you that right now because my kids tell me stuff that I did that I didn't even know that I did. So I no, it wasn't that bad, but you know what I mean. So hey, Michelle, what do you think? Is it
Yes.
time for take a break?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, we'll take our last break and get all the rest of this conversation as scooped up as we can because it's just barely getting started.
It is, and I wish that we had a lot more time. You're gonna have to come back. Will you come back and I'm sorry that we had glitches in the first part of the show, but you're gonna have to come back and see us again. Would you do that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. This is my second time, so I'd love to come back for a third, fourth. We'll get it all out. However many therapy sessions you need, Kevin.
Now, in my defense, I've done 1,000 shows, and so I don't remember. Never mind. We'll be right back.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. And Michelle is right over there. And our guest today, Michelle, is
Reesa Morala. And thank you again for being here and coming back. These conversations with you are so unique, but so broad in very specific ways that I think a lot of us aren't willing to talk about. So it's important.
it's
Absolutely.
more than important. It is. I think it's vital. And if the younger, see, because youth is lost on the young, and because they have children at and a lot of them. My mom was 19 and my dad was 21, and I'm not even sure she knew how she got pregnant anyway. But when they're when and so they had 3 kids by the time my dad was 27. Now I remember what it was like when I was 27, and I wasn't very bright at all. And to have 3 kids doing that, that's really hard. So you're bound to make mistakes. Rochelle, how old were your parents when you came bouncing along?
I'd love to say I'm actually the oldest person in my family so far to not have a child. Although that I do have one other cousin. But my mom was 22, 23-ish. My dad was further past that, but both of them, even for how it was back in their day, at their time, in their age, and even how it is for me now, is broadly so different. And then on top of that, just them and who they are now is extremely different. And I'm very thankful and I'm blessed to be proud of my parents because they are completely different people. And they, although it was hard, take the recognition of, hey, I need to change. my ways and who I am and my values as a person, because this little human is now starting to become me. And I don't know if I want that. So I learned a lot.
And so, Risa, I got to ask you. I'm going to anoint you right now, and now
Okay.
you are master of the universe. Should people have children when they're kids, or should they wait a little while until they're a little bit more mature, in your opinion, and in the work that you've done?
Well, I'll tell you, I've met some 60-year-olds that aren't quite finding their maturity yet
I don't know
either.
what you're talking
So,
about.
And even young kids who it's like they just born with that motherly or parent side of them that is ready to become that, which is
yeah.
also kind of scary.
Absolutely. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think it's more about the maturity age versus the age that's on your driver's license or birth certificate or whatever number you want to talk about. And your willingness, again, not that you have to have it all together, but more your willingness, like you said, Rochelle, to kind of get vulnerable, to be able to have the humility to apologize, to say, oh, yeah, I totally messed that up. Like, I am learning, but that was absolutely inappropriate for me to say these things. Let me try that again. And that takes a ton of humility. That takes a lot of insight and awareness and a willingness to grow. And so I think it's more about that because children, like I said, they're going to push your buttons. You're going to see yourself personified outside of your body. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my children have said something and I go, ooh, I just said that. And I don't like the way that it sounds coming back at me. So, oh yeah, maybe I do need to think about changing this. And that's going to happen. So you can either sit there and go, no, I didn't do that. I'm perfect. Like you said, I'm practically perfect. So no, that wasn't me. That's a them problem. Or we can have the insight, the awareness, the willingness to say, oh yeah, let's take a look at that and let's shift some things around because I want something different for my children.
And one thing I have to ask you, Risa, is w- how would you handle a situation, let's say, where somebody may say, "Oh, well, my parents just made me that way," or "I'm just it's because I'm like my dad. It's because I'm just like my mom." Um, like, what would you say to
It gets said all the time, so I've definitely heard that. And
that?
again, the question is, do we want to keep doing that? How did that work out for you? Or do we want to try something different?
Yeah.
Because there's tons of resources out there. And so it's less about that we can't do something different. It's the question, do you want to do something different? And if you're saying no, or if you're resting in, well, that's all I have, that in itself is a choice. You're choosing
Yep.
to remain continuing to do the same thing, expecting different outcomes. And then that's going to be, you'll reap the rewards of whatever you decide to invest in that relationship.
I think Einstein said something about that, or somebody did, that was really learned and smart and stuff. So congratulations. And by the way, if you want to find out more about this young lady and how she works, and where she works, embrace renewaltherapy.com.
Yes.
Embrace renewaltherapy.com. And tell me if this resonates. It's on your website, so I imagine it does. How many people are out there that are going, are you parents who are living like roommates and you really want your best friend back? Well, she can help you figure out how to do that because everybody wants their best friend back. Or you, or you wouldn't have taken the steps to create that little monster that you made anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, I would hope not.
Oh, that's what. Okay, thank you. Yes, no, and it's really important, and we're running out of time. So, um, Rochelle, would you ask her the final question or two?
Yes, we always ask because we get the best things that come out of people's insight. But for anybody who's been listening to our audience, what is something that you would like to share the most?
I think that I would again just say messing up is absolutely normal. We're all going to do something that's going to give a future therapist a job. Let's just get that out of the way. I do it too. In fact, I say it all the time. Oh, my children's definitely going to be talking about that in therapy in the future. Great. So we all do it. It's again about your willingness to just come back to, I know it's really scary to go into the vulnerability, to go into the humility, but you are so worth it to do that for yourself, to do that for the little human inside of you that maybe didn't get that from your parents or from the grown-ups that were around you. You deserve that. Your child deserves that, and your relationships deserve that too.
And you can make generational change. And what do I mean by generational change? It means that the 7 generations are what happens from the father goes to the son, goes to the son, goes to the son, goes to the son. And in order for it to change, somebody's got to break the chain and do things a little bit differently and do them better. And you can affect your entire family. You can affect your workplace. You can affect everything if you decide that you're going to change fundamentally who you are. And that can be done, can't it?
Absolutely.
Willingness.
It absolutely can be done. If you want it, you can make it happen. And not only do you change, the people around you, but imagine if every single person did that, we'd change the world. I mean, we're pretty powerful if we want to be.
Yes.
Now that was very well said. And I want to thank you for being here. And again, if you want to embrace renewal and meet with Reesa, you can do that by going to her website. Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yes, absolutely.
And so go there, which is the name of her website again, Brichelle.
EmbraceRenewalTherapy.com. Go and find out a little more and get curious. I love saying that.
I think curiosity is a good thing unless it kills the cat.
Well, a cat has 9 lives.
Oh, well
so
said.
There's lots of learning. There's lots of learning that can be done. You just got to be patient. And it gives you the chance to mess up. So you just proved that theory to be absolutely gold. Thank you, Kevin.
I am a king at messing up. Just ask my children. or my ex-wife for that matter. Don't ask her. She no. In any event, Reesa, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, just please come back soon. And I can't wait to see where the next conversation goes because it's always so powerful with you.
Yes, thank you so much again for having me. It's always a pleasure talking.
Thanks.
Well, I'm sure that I'm going to have another conversation with a close relative of mine that I'm going to need to be talked down from. So you'll have to come back and talk to me about that. And also, Brichelle, it's really cool. She's young, but she's got a younger flock of kids that are in their teens, and they treat her like the auntie from heaven and stuff, and so they love her to death, and she is working hard to treat them the way they need to be treated and treat them well. Is that right, Brichelle?
Yeah, and to pass it along because damn it, their generation scares me. So I want to give them something good to obviously a mistake mirror to balance themselves off of, which I feel like I'm there for and I'm able to do that. But to also go out and move differently in the world as their teenage selves, which right now is so fun. So I'm doing my best.
Well, as I get older, I find out that each generation scares the next generation.
Yeah, I'm kind of learning that too.
It's like, turn off that damn music. Anyway, thank you so much, Reesa, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at kmmedia.pro.